on this week's edition of the Arkansas Broadband Leaders Network. Quickly, look at the agenda this morning. As always, we'll have some updates, and then we'll look at Digital Navigator program that's taking place within the state. We'll have updates on that. And then, as always, we'll take Q&A at the end. Okay, so big news. 2 weeks ago, the NTIA released what they called the BEAD restructuring policy notice, and it's linked for you here on the slides that you'll receive after the call. This policy notice, or PN, as we may refer to it, impacts the Arkansas BEAD program, which, as a reminder, is the infrastructure grant portion of what we've been doing for quite a while now. First, our state is going to fully comply with that policy notice. Yesterday, our team submitted a letter that sort of confirms that to the federal government, and that officially restarted the Arkansas BEAD program for us. Yesterday, things are going to begin to move very quickly once again after this brief pause that we've had for a couple of weeks, and the timeline is very, very tight. We have 62 days from today to complete the grant application process and post the state's final proposal, which really just means the list of statewide grant awards right through the program for public comment. So time is very, very tight. We have to move quickly, and we will. Okay, so a couple of slides here around the policy notice, what it actually impacts as a part of the program that we'll read through quickly and then move on. So first of all, the final proposal deadline. All states are now required to submit a final proposal, which again is just a list of outstanding statewide grant awards that we make to the federal government by September 4th. However, if you include the mandatory 14-day public comment period that, as of now, has not been changed by NTIA, all grant selection activities on the infrastructure side must be concluded by August 21st. So this leaves just 62 days from today, June 20th, to complete those activities and get them posted for public comment. So we do have to run another competitive grant round. It's called a benefit of the bargain grant round. We have to do it as mandatory, and it must be held to ensure all BEAD eligible locations are competitively bid under this new policy notice. Precision of the previous awards. So all of the preliminary selections at the state of Arkansas preliminarily selected, and the prior 3 rounds that we had completed back up into April are technically rescinded and replaced via this new benefit of the bargain round, which we'll look at a timetable shortly to walk you through what that looks like. There was some elimination of some statutory, non-statutory requirements actually. So previous requirements in the program related to labor, climate, affordability, and open network access are removed. Redefine priority projects. So projects will now be evaluated without an inferred preference towards fiber, provided that they do meet all statutory performance criteria and also satisfy the definition of a priority broadband project. As far as scoring, there's some changes there. The cost effectiveness of the projects now becomes the primary criterion. Secondary criteria, which would include status as a prior preliminary selectee, deployment speeds, and technical performance only apply when bids are within 15% of the lowest cost bid, meeting the statutory performance criteria and that definition of a priority broadband project. 2 things left here. Updated location lists. The state must revalidate its list of broadband serviceable locations. We've referred to them as BSLs before. You may have heard that. It really just means homes and businesses across the state and community anchor institutions, or RCAIs. There is a temporary suspension of the non-deployment portion of the program, so all previously approved non-deployment activities using excess funding are technically rescinded pending new guidance from the federal government. For us, that would include the $15 million that we had allocated for the Arkansas Fiber Academy, in that workforce bucket. And then secondly, the $5 million that we had allocated towards digital safety for kids in elementary and junior high. Technically, those are on pause at the moment, and we await guidance from the federal government relative to once we run this process. And if we have money left over after we award our infrastructure grants, we had always talked about that we could do internet related projects with that excess funding. Technically, that is suspended for the moment until we wait for new guidance from the federal government regarding those excess dollars. And that's all contained within this new policy notice. This thing, the recap I've given you this morning is not exhaustive. You should consult the BEAD restructuring policy notice if you're interested, and it's linked several times throughout this presentation. So most immediate impacts for the state, one, as we said, the preliminary selections from rounds 1, 2, and 3 are officially rescinded. And as we said, the state must run another grant application round very, very quickly. So what does that look like from a timeline standpoint? We are targeting to run this additional grant round that we have to run for 1 week, Monday, July 7th through Monday, July 14th. We would then hopefully be able to publish high-level results of that extra grant round July 28th. After that, we would intend to go public with the full detailed list of all grant awards across the state for a 2-week period, August 11th through August 25th, and then ultimately submit the final proposal document containing the list of all statewide grant awards to the federal government by the end of August. Okay, so with that, we'll turn it over to Cam this morning for updates from the Digital Opportunity Manager, and then he will introduce our content from this morning around digital navigators. Good morning, Cam.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me, Glenn?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we're still exploring alternative funding sources to implement some of the strategies that we outlined regarding digital skills. And so hopefully we'll have an official update on that. I wanted to continue to link the net inclusion resources from 2025 as knowledge, as tools that as we explore these alternative strategies, the community is ready to implement. And so everything from programmatic formation to re-angling or switching goals of existing digital skills programs, as well as about a lot of knowledge that was shared at the event in Arizona, is all within the Google Drive that's linked here. So I'll keep linking it throughout my slides throughout the summer to continue to share those resources to hopefully get them used by our practitioners out in the field. Glenn, you could go to the next one. As we continue to look at broadband, I wanted to take a peek at broadband adoption, people that subscribe to broadband services at their home. And so I did an extrapolation of the FCC's big broadband data collection. They update every 6 months. But they published a report in May 2025 based off of data they collected in June of 2024. So exactly a year ago. What we have highlighted our states and all of our border states as a context. And what the statistics represent are the ratio of connected broadband serviceable locations in counties of our neighboring states. So for instance, 80 to 100% represents 80 to a county that's in that range of 80 to 100% of their broadband serviceable locations are actually subscribed to internet services. As you see, us at the top of our 75 counties, 43% are at a ratio of connected locations of under 40%. So that's just as a reference. And so as we continue to build, we have a lot of infrastructure that has already been built. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, it's about 1.3 million locations in our state. Per my last update or on the BEAD program.
That is correct. That is correct. 1.3 million locations across Arkansas.
Okay. And then per the BEAD program, before the policy shift, and before we have to resubmit locations, 84,000 locations we're looking to serve. No, that include businesses, homes, anchor institutions. So, roughly, my Jacksonville, Florida math, that's around 6% of locations that still need access to internet. Where we have, 90% already have access. 90% of the locations in our state already have access. And so as we continue to look, I think this will be a longer term conversation that we're going to need to have in community, and we're going to need community partners to have in community. The business case, we build the infrastructure, we make it available. But if people don't subscribe, or if people are not subscribing, then, I don't, depending on the business practice of the ISP, but, these services may, they may not exist forever if, we have under 40% take on the majority of our counties. Broadband service adoption, subscribing to internet service is somewhat, related. It's not, is correlated to income levels, and some research has shown, but this may be the longer term conversation that we need to have in community. When you go ahead and switch. So I want to introduce Marcus Davis of Go Forward Pine Bluff, serving at the generator. Sorry, that's my mistake. And if you're on, Marcus, please join us now. He's going to talk about his services as the digital navigator at the generator. Marcus, are you here with us today? Yeah, I'll give him a moment. But if he's not here with us, we'll just answer questions, and I'm sure there may be a few about the BEAD policy notice.
Looks like perhaps he wasn't able to make it this morning. That's okay. We'll pivot in real time, and that happens sometimes. Cam, thanks for running through some of those statistics for us, breaking down. Look, what percentage of our counties have certain subscription rates right across the state, which is very important, as you said. Moving forward, that's something we'll have to track and work on, hopefully with our county communities, to help drive adoption as we move forward. With that, let's go to the chat box and just post content. We always do Q&A. As always, let's see if there's anything there this morning. Go back and look. Let's see. Everybody's got an AI. There's so many. Everyone's got an AI note taker. Unless this thing went haywire, there's a lot. Let's see. All right, we'll look at the chat box first, and then we'll go to hands up in a second. Let's take a look. Let's see. All right, the meeting started. All right, AI, 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 AI. I must be the last person on the planet who is not subscribed to an AI note taker yet. Let's see, AI. Okay. All right, so no actual questions in the chat box just yet. We'll look at that and monitor that. Let's go ahead and look at our room, see who has questions this morning. Let's go. Amber Gregory. Good morning, Amber. How are you? And I do apologize for background noise, as I'm in this rather noisy legislative lobby this morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Glenn. I'm Amber Gregory. I'm at the Arkansas State Library, and I had a question about the slide that had the broadband adoption statistics. Did I see it on there that those were taken from June in 2024? So I guess my question is, do those reflect, does that reflect a subscription percentage that might reflect Arkansans that were getting ACP benefits. So that was my first question with this. And then second of all, I was wondering if these were updated post ACP to see, what those might be currently.
They
Yeah, great
might,
question, Cam. So
yeah,
Cam, I was going to say, yeah, please take that.
they may include ACP subscription numbers. I think ACP sunsetted in May of 2024.
Yes.
And so it may reflect residential services. It may reflect residential services. There's no real way to know for certain. And honestly, we don't know, like in these ratios, we don't know which counties these numbers represent. We just have the SE in this report, you'll get the link, but it's figure 50 that I just extrapolated. But they go from tens, so 0 to 10, 20 to 30, et cetera, all the way to 100. But just ranges in the number of counties. But yes, as of June 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this is something that Cam was able to locate. I think it is a very important kind of a data set for us as we move forward. When you think about that, only 5%, if I'm looking at this correctly, only 5% or 4 of our counties had 80% or higher of their population subscribing to broadband service, right? So, and then only if you take the 23, so really only 28% or 21 counties have a subscription rate of 60% or more. That's really low. People are not taking advantage now, for whatever reason, affordability, other issues, but it's something we need to track and work on. So great call out, Amber. Great data set there. Yeah. All right,
thank
Tamika.
you.
Let's. Yeah, thanks, Amber. Morning, Tamika.
Hey, good morning, Glenn. Good morning to everyone. So, Tamika Moore, Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association. My question is, we had a lot of conversation around community action agencies and other essential service providers working in the space of helping with this to build digital skills capacity there. But in looking at what Cam just outlined and some of those disparities, bridging gaps, what are some things that networks like ours and other essential service providers can do to help bridge some of those gaps?
Yeah, Tamika, look, that's a great question. I think, part of it is digging into why folks don't subscribe, right? There was a lot of work done in the digital skills and opportunity plan that the state put out last year, right? And there was a lot of polling done, a lot of focus group work done around the barriers that do exist for folks. That's some really interesting data that I think maybe in the next call 2 weeks from now, we can dig in a little bit into what those statistics look like, because people outlined why they weren't subscribed, right, across a host of reasons. And so I think if we take a look at the data, maybe on the next call in 2 weeks, we can extrapolate out some of that data and show it for folks and talk through it. And then we can look at trying to coordinate some of our efforts, right, with different groups in the state, including Community Action Agency folks and others around the state, and continue to talk about how do we attack that issue. I think the first step we should do is take a look at the data that we do have, maybe next week, and some of our own internal polling the state did, and look at the reasons that why folks indicated that they were not subscribing. So we can take that approach.
Thanks,
and then
Glenn.
that could inform how we move forward. Yeah, great question, Tamika. Great question. Let's see. Hal, good morning. Hey, Hal, you have your hand up.
You're on mute.
And you're currently on mute, Hal, if you're trying.
Good morning. I was just curious if the broadband subscription data is available on a county basis.
It's not outlined. I could share. You can view the link. I could share my screen. I got it up in another link, but it's not
Okay.
identify which counties are which. We can only guess at honestly at this point which counties these numbers represent, these ratios represent.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Al. And what I would say there is, yeah, this particular data set, maybe not. I think there may be some estimates right within the census data that we can take a look at, and so we'll try to extrapolate if that's there. We'll try to extrapolate that out for our next call as well. So not only looking at statistics around the internal polling that we did with our focus groups back when we did the digital skills and opportunity plan, but also take a look at the estimation data that comes from the census, and we'll look at both of those. And that may be available to us on a county by county basis, Hal. So we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
Let's see. And of course, as always, folks, feel free to ask questions about anything we talked about today. The statistics, the program, anything else. Let's see. Look at that.
Another resource that's in the Google Drive is it's a NDIA survey template. So if you guys wanted to launch polling in your communities, in your counties, you guys can use that resource and build upon it to fit your needs. Of course, there's questions in that template about broadband service adoption at subscription at home. So we can deploy that if you guys want to look at, or you guys want to collect data on your own. We can also share what we collected during the Digital Opportunity Survey Initiative. I think in 22, I believe we collected that data. So 3 years ago. And then if we wanted to launch an initiative to collect data, we could as well with some tools that we have available.
Okay, while we wait for anything else in the chat box or hands raised, just want to close out here just a minute and say, look, on the BEAD side of things and the infrastructure side of things, we're excited. There were a couple of weeks there where things kind of got paused, to be honest, waiting for the federal government to come through with their updated policy notice, which they finally did. And we had to digest that for a week or two, figure out how to move forward. We have, under the old set of rules, we had one of the best programs in the country. Under the new set of rules, we're still going to have one of the best programs in the country. So what I told the providers earlier this morning, look, we're all in this together. We have a great program and a great plan, and we're excited to be able to move forward and move quickly to get this thing wrapped up finally. So with that, we'll give it just another second in case there's anything that comes in. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Glenn. Sorry, I hopped in late, so you may have already gone over this. How much of the BEAD fund was expended and how much is left?
Yeah, great question, Adam. So, we went through under the old rules that again changed as of 2 weeks ago to the new set. We ran through 3, competitive bidding rounds and made preliminary selections, but there were not actual awards, right? So that funding was not distributed or awarded to those folks. And this is essentially a reset. Now we have to do it very quickly and execute over the next 62 days. But so there's been no official awards yet out of the program. Does that make sense? But
Yeah, it does.
It's still all there. Yeah. Cam making a great point that 2 weeks from today is July 4th. So hopefully everyone will be enjoying that day and celebrating our nation's independence. We will not have an ABLN call that day. Great point, Cam. Let's see, into the chat box, Kelly a second ago. So Hal had a question, but he asked it on the mic. Let's see. So Kelly said, looking at very interested in a drill down on the data. I would like to better understand the various pending subscriptions. Great. The next call, which probably is not July 4th, but the next session after that, we will do a good presentation on the data, the barriers preventing subscription, and we'll bring as much firepower as we can from a data perspective and walk through it with everyone and what that looks like. Especially, I think it's important to look at the stats for Arkansas, right? Because the barriers that we face here are going to be different from the barriers in New York City or LA or whatever, right? So we'll have Arkansas specific data that we can walk through next time. Let's see, Jeff, please provide the Google Drive resource link again in the chat. Yeah, Jeff, it's in the PowerPoint, right? So PowerPoints always come. We always send that out right after the call, and that's linked for you there. But we can work to put it in the chat. Let me just a second. Let's see. But again, it's always available for you in the slides and the notes that come after this meeting. The email. I'm not sure why the federal government or the FCC has a link to ChatGPT on the end of it. That's interesting. But that was the link for the document this morning. As we close here, just in case, let's take one more look at the timeline as it relates to the BEAD program again. So again, we have this reset that happened 2 weeks ago with new policy guidance that essentially cancels what we did, before, and we have to run this very quick, got to do it again very quickly. All right, so looking at the grant application round to occur for 1 week from July 7th through July 14th. We should be able to put out high-level results publicly July 28th. And then for a 2-week period, August 11th through August 25, we put out what's called the final proposal, which is just a fancy term for the list of all statewide grant awards, for our program, publicly available. Everyone will get to see everything for those 2 weeks, then ultimately submit that document to the federal government by the end of August. That is our tentative immediate timeline, of course, subject to change. Let's see, Adam.
Yeah, sorry, I had a follow-up question, but I think this may have answered it. So in the email you sent out a couple of weeks ago where you talked about the preliminary selection was 99% of the state's eligible locations for only 57% of the available budget. What happens to that other 43%?
Well, that's a good question. So yeah, to set it up, so we had made preliminary selections across our 3 competitive bidding rounds. As you said, for 99% of our locations, for only 57% of our budget, which I would argue are some of the best numbers across the entire country. But that essentially that goes away, right? So we're starting back at 0. And so, but I understand where you're going with the question. So if we run the process again, and whatever, let's say it comes out at 57% again, right? Just hypothetically speaking, or some number less than 100%, right? It remains to be seen what is going to happen should we have any excess funds. Originally, under the old set of rules that were basically done away with 2 weeks ago, the state had the ability to propose to NTIA sort of internet-related, right, projects that were not sort of traditional last mile projects. I've talked about this stuff for 3 years now, and the plan, well, basically 3 years in August, about what we were looking to do. The state picked out 4 key priority focus areas, which everyone on this call, most everyone I'm sure has heard me say multiple times, our 4 key focus areas, right? Education, healthcare, agriculture, small business, right? And doing things in those priority areas, along with workforce development for broadband and digital safety for our children. And so we thought those were very important, critical aspects of the program. Should we have excess funds remaining? We thought we would, we projected we would, we did. And we have to run the process again to see what happens as far as how much money is dedicated to infrastructure via this one round we have to run now versus how much is left over. The federal government through NTIA has essentially said they're still debating on what to do should states have excess funding left, and that they would put out guidance at a later date. So essentially, at the moment, we don't know. We are waiting for additional guidance from the federal government relative to excess funds should we have them. We feel strongly that we'll have excess funds again, and we would love to do, as we've always said, priority projects across those focus areas, plus workforce and digital safety for the kids. It would make Arkansas a much stronger state and a much better position moving forward. But we have to see what the federal government chooses to do within the excess funding. It's a very long-winded answer of something that should have been short, but I wanted to make sure that you had the full context of sort of where we've been, what we've projected, and how the new guidance is impacting that at the moment.
I appreciate that a lot. Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, Kelly.
Hi, Glenn. So it sounds, this
Hey.
is more of a comment than a question, but it sounds like those of us that have been engaging with working groups that have specific use case applications for broadband that could have benefited from that, any excess monies left over. We should continue to build out those use cases in anticipation of potentially having something ready to go should those funds be or given the green light to be used for that purpose.
Yeah, it's tough, right? We're all in a very tough position because I know that planning things out, it takes time, it takes money, it takes resources, and that's hard for people to do with uncertainty, right? It's hard for folks to continue planning, thinking through, and designing things. Oh, well, we don't know if the money's actually going to be there, and I fully appreciate that. And unfortunately, it's the position that we're in. I think as much as people can continue to collaborate and think and design, right, and hopefully not take on a heavy burden from a financial standpoint relative to planning and so forth. I would highly encourage everyone to do that. I was hired into this role really for this program, and I will continue to fight. Our team will continue to fight for this program, and until the end. And so, please stay with us. Please be by our side on this path that we're taking forward. And as you can, please continue to plan. Please continue to work, and we'll see what the road unfolds for us. But I understand it's a very difficult position for folks to plan and potentially use resources on something that may or may not come to fruition. But our team, we have no choice but to move forward and hope for the best, plan for the worst. If you can, stay with us. Let's keep moving forward. And for the record, as folks still on here, there's no at the moment there's no concern around losing funding for the infrastructure side of things. Okay, there's been no indication whatsoever that is on the table to go anywhere. So we feel very comfortable with that. Obviously, the growing concern is around the non-deployment stuff. And so we just have to kind of see where that falls. Back. Yeah, you're welcome, Kelly. All right, checking through the chat box real quick. Looks like some folks are on the basic Otter plan, and so your 30-minute plan is about to expire for some of those folks. Okay, we'll sit tight for just another second, just in case something comes through, but we won't keep you much longer on this Friday. Give it just another second. Yeah, Hunter, look, we appreciate it. And look, this is, we've tried to make this thing, you know, when we first started, we hit the road, right? Because the only way the state moves forward is through partnership and teamwork. And it takes every county, all 75, to be involved in this thing. And all of you have responded tremendously. So you should all be proud of the progress we've already made. The infrastructure program is about to cross its 125,000th location in Arkansas, the Arkansas Rural Connect program. And so we'll have, when that occurs, we'll put out announcements about that. And so even before we get right to the BEAD program and what that's going to do for the 84,000 locations and the potential for non-deployment, these other things, we've come so far as a state. Really, we have. You know, again, we said it before, it's not my office, it's 21 to 24, Arkansas led the nation in increased broadband connectivity, right? Number one in the country at 9%. And that is a statistic that takes into account before me and our team even got here, right? And so we've made so much progress as a state. We should all be proud of that. Okay. Thanks everyone for hopping on today. The notes and email will come forth shortly. A lot of good data there for you. And we will see everyone at the next meeting. We're going to dig into some data. That's going to be really fun and look at some Arkansas specific data. So hang with us. BEAD's almost done. We got one more round to do. We'll get it done. We'll have a great result and we'll move forward. So thank you for being with us and we'll see you next time.